Chainmail, Rules for Medieval Miniatures. Friend of mine, Jeffro Johnson, he pointed out something to me the other day. He's the author of Appendix N. He's pointed out a lot of things to me over the years. If we take a look at this Rules for Medieval Miniatures, we may have been doing this thing wrong the whole time. Well, we've only been taking advantage of one of the options. Gary Gygax says, hey, the forces to be pitted against each other can be drawn from an historical account, chosen by point value, hey, that's how we've always done it, assigned by a third neutral party, or, and here's what today's video is all about, worked out from a campaign situation where larger armies are moved on a map until hostile forces come into contact. This is the kind of organic battles that commanders have had to deal with from the word jump, at least as long as there has been strategy. We're going to use the Solo Wargaming Guide to put together just this kind of, well, not, it's in here somewhere, a map-based campaign for Chainmail. And we've run through a couple of Solo Wargaming campaigns here on the channel. Those of you that have been around for a year will remember we did a couple of Black Powder campaigns, kind of early Napoleonic, maybe late 7 Years' War. We kind of fudged it a little bit, and we're going to be doing a little bit of that with this today, too. The fun thing is that we're going to build this world together. Let me grab a blank piece of paper and some D20s, and I will show you how. As we begin, all I know for sure is that the Broman Empire, the blank slate you see before you, is to the south of the Orcish hordes. I don't know who's attacking. I don't know who's defending. All I want to know right now is the lay of the land. Our host, Mr. William Sylvester, recommends we figure out the map first. The most important thing will be the communities and the towns. Those will be checkpoint supply stations and perhaps even some targets for the various armies. I'm going to use a die drop method to figure out where the 11 largest communities, well, I should say the 12 largest. The D12 is going to be the location of the capital, the city of Brohome. That is going to be located wherever this die lands up. The location of the other 11 dice will tell me where the other 11 communities are, and the number on the dice will tell me how big the community is. A result of a 10 will be the largest, and a 1 through 4 will be the smallest. And I'll show you the table here after I go ahead and roll these bones, and we'll repeat the process for the orcs as well, and maybe put an orky spin on things. All right, so this actually makes a good deal of sense. The capital is going to be right here, and if we look at these numbers, we've got a large city here. I'll just, just to kind of keep things consistent, I'm going to write the numbers right below where I see the dice. And we got a couple of 9s, a 10. So there's a little small, another 9 here, a 5 over here, a 5 here, 7, and 3. So let me clean this map up and we'll take a look at it. We have drawn together Brohome, which conveniently enough is located in the center of the Broman Empire. All roads lead to Brohome. Just a rudimentary road network here linking up. Now the question is, why do we have such a big gap over here? Why do we have such a big gap over here? And what's going on here on the northern border between the Broman Empire and the Orcish hordes? And to figure that out, we are going to use we're going to use a card-driven terrain placement. Now this is going to be, we use this for the tables, right? For our tabletop battles, but this time we're going to use it on a much larger national scale. So we're going to just lay out, oh boy, jokers need not apply. So we're just going to lay these out like so. And this time we're just going to go 3 by 4. Remember, the black cards are terrain features and the red cards are nothing. So just like that, we can see. And again, we flip back over to our good friend, Mr. Sylvester, and what you see is the black 9 is going to be light woods. The black 6 is going to be heavy woods. The 5 is heavy woods. The 7 is light woods. So we have a border of woods running through here, and that heavy woods must be the natural barrier that keeps the Orcish hordes from sweeping down in. This King of Clubs is going to be, well, grasslands. It's all grass. I don't know. The King is going to be a body of water. The 7 will be more woods. The Queen will be a body of water. And I think that's it. We are still in the sketching phase. So what I did is I put a nice long lake here that connects this D-class village to this E-class village. And then I went ahead and put a little, I don't know, a sea or an ocean inlet. And this B-class city down here is going to be a port. Now, the classification is important because that tells you how many men each of these communities will be able to contribute to the war effort. As you can see, we've got a total of, if you run the numbers, 4,050 men right out of the gate. But that's because each of these, so the E-class will provide 2 regiments, and each regiment is 150 men. We need to pull out a D4 because this B-class city, the port down here in the south, is going to give us 1 to 5 regiments, D4 plus 1. So I rolled a 2. That means we get 3 regiments out of him. 3 regiments, and each regiment is going to be 750 men, so that gives us another 2250, and then we get 2 to 5 regiments out of our A-class city as well. I mean, did I do that right? It should be 1 to 5. Okay. Let me re-roll that. We're going to roll a D10 divided by 2. The 7 is going to be 4 regiments, rather. So that actually becomes 3,000 men are coming out of this port city. And then we're going to roll a D4 plus 1, and we get 3. So 3 regiments coming out of Broholm. That's going to be your 2250. And if we add this 5,250 to the first number, we get 9,300 troops. That's what the Roman Empire is going to have available. 9,300 troops. Now, how are those divided up? Well, I'm not entirely sure just yet. I'm going to have to give a little bit of thought. Now, obviously, this is a medieval warfare, so there will be a lot of heavy horse, and probably what I'll do is dedicate a couple of heavy horse from each of these larger cities, like the B and the A and the C. Alternatively, I may just say, look, each one of these villages is going to be run by a baron who's got his own retinue, right? So I may decide that, look, I'm just going to pull from 20% are going to be heavy horse. How many are going to be archers? I don't know. We'll get to that in a minute. But we still haven't even talked at all about the Orcish hordes. Now, the Orcish hordes are a little bit different. They're going to be directly to the north. So we already know what this southern boundary is going to be for them. It's going to be all woods. And other than that, we don't know what's going on. So we got to figure out what our communities are. And again, we're going to let the D12 be the principal city, the principal Orcish settlement, if you will. And this time around, I think what we're going to do is, because again, these are Orcish hordes. Now, if we're using the chainmail rules for orcs as orcs, orcs from different realms hate each other. And one of the things that has protected the Roman Empire is the fact that the orcs hate each other. So I think what I'll do is roll the dice twice, and I will reduce all of their settlements by 1 size. In other words, every A class becomes, well, we're gonna keep the capital as a, this we'll call it like a staging point or a caravanserai or some kind of treaty place where the 2 tribes of orcs have decided to get together. So maybe what we'll do is we'll roll these, and we're going to reduce the sizes. So I'm going to roll for this. Well, that might be a problem. We want to make sure we get a good spread over the half of the board. So I'll put this down, and we'll roll from north to south and see what we get. We'll drop you over there, and we'll re-roll to get one in the center. And there is our left-hand tribe of orcs. So I'll write these numbers down, and we'll re-roll on the other side of the board. And in fact, the other side of the board is going to have the capital. So perhaps what's happened is that this warlord on this side, we won't have to roll that, has found a way to unite all of the clans. So let me write those numbers down. We'll figure out what the classes are, and we'll be right back. We've got a couple of border villages down here on the boundary, which tally up a total of 1,650 orcs. And then we've got kind of a lobe of settlements through here. Now, I managed to roll a total of 1, 2, 3 10s for these guys. This would have been overwhelming. What I did is I left it as a B-class city, but I only gave them each one regiment or 750 troops. Altogether, we're already up to 5,700 orcs, and we haven't even rolled for the other half of the guys yet. And nor have we figured out, see, that's, you can't roll in one direction. You have to do a straight drop to get a better spread. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of draw a little line through here to kind of show us the delineation between red orcs and blue orcs, I guess you could call it. And we have some lower numbers here. We've got 4, 4, 8. We got another 8. We got another 10 here, so we'll give them the 750. 4, 2, 7, 9, and a 5. So a bit of a crescent through there. Let me write down those settlements and sizes, and we'll be right back. So here's where things stand after we punch up all those. Oh, there's one more thing we need to do. The capital, the Great Orcish Khan, lives here, and we need to roll a d4. We'll add 1. That's how many regiments. Remember, each regiment is 750, or we'll contribute, and we got the big 5. Well, we rolled a 4, so we add the 5, and that means that the Great Khan has amassed a large army of, it's going to be 3,750. Now, you have the settlements through here offered up a total of 4,500. So if we add the 4,500 to that 3,750, we are going to wind up with 8,250. The orcs have the advantage in numbers. The humans have the advantage in mobility because their roads are all tied together. The next thing we need to do is figure out if we have any fun little terrain features in the orcish side of the map. So we're going to use our deck of cards, which I have already shuffled. We'll give it one more shuffle. Now this time I think I'm only going to go ahead and deal out the 8 of them. And rather than be, should we deal out the 8? We got a blank space here. No, we'll deal the 12. Remember, the black cards are significant. And rather than be large scale features, these will just be kind of minor points of interest. The king and the queen, I believe, are water bodies. We've got some, oh, it looks like we've got quite a few. There you go. So the kings up here are water bodies. The 4 is going to be, here we go. So I can show you on the table. The 4 is heavy woods. We got heavy woods here. And the 2 is going to be a hill. So we finally have a hill feature. And what is this 3? Another hill. So let's sketch in some terrain for that. I always like to put adjacent features, just go ahead and connect them, make them one big feature. And that's what we've done down here in the southwest portion of the map. The heavy woods are united down here, and what we find is that these 3 southern settlements of the orcs are protected by a watchtower hill. So we now have a case where this string of villages is essentially cut in half. All this blank space is filled up by heavy woods, which the orcs are not big fans of. The boundary, we had a lake up here, so I said, all right, you know what we're going to do? We're going to link these 2 cities. We got a B class up here. It's a rather large one, so we got a couple of guys that are comfortable on a lake up here, and there's going to be some pretty quick movement across that lake because of it, some kind of war canoe things. Now, over here on the eastern portion, since we had a big hill, I'm going to put a giant there. So good old Murray Mack, you remember him from the last game that we had, he is not going to start the game in play. If the orcs can capture a certain number of prisoners, and we'll play the prisoner rules on the tabletop battle, if the orcs capture and get prisoners off the table, then they can force march the prisoners to the giant. And I don't know what the number is, something like 100. If they can offer 100 prisoners for the giant's pot, then the giant will come out and he will serve them in battle. So that gives us a little bit of fantasy flavor to this game. We may wind up deciding that these woods are all patrolled by the Elvish Empire. Remember, I have a 3rd army, and we now have a fairly substantial line of woods here. If we look, each of these 1 inch is equivalent to 20 miles. So this heavy woods in the middle is 80 miles across by 20 miles wide. This heavy woods is about the same size. 80 by 20 is 1,600. We get about 3,300 square miles of heavy woods. Heavy woods, that doesn't even include the light woods. So that may be an option moving forward for a three-party game, or maybe we decide to explore what would happen if the elves from the woods went to war with the orcs. But for today, they're just going to stay invisible and let the north and the south duke it out. So the question then becomes, who's the aggressor in this campaign? Oh, but before we get to that, I should point out, I put Orc Lake down here, and the Great Khan has called for a big powwow on the shores of Orc Lake. That's where his temporary capital is, and this may wind up shifting. We may roll a new D12 every time we play this campaign to figure out where the capital is. That is a very politically important position, and it may be that if the humans can wipe this place off the map, that they will win. Or maybe the humans decide that they want to take Watchtower Hill. They're going to depopulate this lobe, and they're just going to claim everything in this portion of the map. I'm not sure yet. But like I said, we don't know who the aggressors are. To figure that out, we're going to do a simple dice off. The yellow die is the humans, the green die is the orcs. Whoever rolls higher will be the aggressor. Hey, it turns out we're going on an Orcish crusade. The human empire is going to mobilize first. The other question is, how do the orcs react? And this is where you don't get too far ahead of yourself. It turns out they're not united yet. Mr. Sylvester gives us a chart to figure out how quickly the defenders mobilize. We're going to roll a d6 on this chart, and we'll figure it out. A result of a 1 means that the defender begins to mobilize at the same time as the attacker. For whatever reason, the orcs knew it was coming. The Great Khan, I guess maybe his shaman, did some divination magic and said, hey, there's a great storm brewing in the south. That makes things easy for us. This is going to drive the strategy that our forces use. Speaking of which, I should point out, I ran some numbers here. Given that the human empire has a total of 9,300 troops at its disposal, scattered across the map yet, we got to figure out how quickly they can assemble. The 9,300, if we go with, the math gets a little complicated, stick with me here. If we go with a chainmail equivalent of one figure represents 20 soldiers, we're going to wind up with a total of 116 stands worth of troops. That's a lot of stands, right? Remember that generally we use about 5 to 6 stands per unit, per block that we're moving around the table. At 5 to 6 units, man, that means we're looking at a total of 20 to 24 blocks moving around. Even if we break that out into 3 separate armies, an east, a center, and a west, you're still looking at about, what did I say? It was 30, about 10 units on the table. I don't have enough figures for that. If I bump the number up to 1 to 30, that's going to give me 77 stands, which only gives me 20 stands on the table at a time. I've got 48 in my possession, generally speaking. So I'm going to go with one figure equals 25 actual soldiers. That makes the math really easy. For 9,300 soldiers, I got 93 stands. I'm going to have about 30 stands. If I break it into 3 armies, I don't know, we'll have to look at the mobilization. But if with 3 armies, that's 30 stands at 6 stands per unit. We're looking at about 5 units, which is a manageable tabletop battle. Remember, we're generating organically tabletop battles. We want to make those as easy as possible. With that same ratio, 1 to 25, the orcs are going to have, one side is going to have 57 stands, and the other side is going to have a grand total of 82 stands. If they wind up aligning with each other, you're looking at almost 200 stands. Is that right? 57, about 150 stands. I'm obviously not going to be able to field all those at once, but like I said, I think what may wind up benefiting we may have a lot of fights in the woods here. Depends on how long it takes everybody to get their act together. That may be for another video. For today, the next thing we need to figure out is, when do we start? What day and what month? We're going to roll a d12 to figure out what month of the year it is. 6 months, January, February, March, April, May. Oh, look, it's June. And fortunately, I have a d30 handy to tell us what day the mobilization begins. June 16th. All right. So here's what we know. On June 16th, the human army sends out the human empire, the bromans. And what I'm going to do to add additional fun flavor is we're going to say that a great hero has arisen. And when our tabletop battles, there will be one hero on the campaign map. We're going to call him Sir Dude Delabides. And he went and he requisitioned the Emperor Meltzer. For those who don't know, whenever we do a battle report on this channel, Mr. Meltzer always puts together a wonderful little vignette, a little 1 to 200 word mini fiction explaining what happened. A lot of times he provides insights. I'm so busy running the battle, I don't have time to sit back and analyze it. And he says, hey, you know what really happened here? Those horses should have stayed on the hill for a couple of extra turns, or this one lost initiative. That was the key that spelled doom. And a lot of times I think, man, that game was wildly unbalanced. And Martin will point out, no, it wasn't. It was just this one lucky die roll made it seem unbalanced. So we're going to go ahead and give him the honor of serving as the Emperor Meltzer, who dispatches Sir Dude Delabides to launch a crusade against the orcs. Maybe the orcs have been raiding through the woods. I don't know yet. We'll get to that. But we now have a story that on June 16th, the call for mobilization goes out. And that call goes out on both sides of the border. We need to know who starts the campaign where. And to do that, what I did is we've got a number of different classes of communities. And I got some notes here, right? So this B class, this port town down here, it provides 3 regiments or 3,000 men. So what I did is I broke it out as 300 heavy horse, 600 armored foot, and 2,100 medium foot. For the smallest villages, I said, we're going to go with the lighter stuff. 100 archers, 100 light horse, 200 light foot, etc. And I'm not going to go through each of those classes. Suffice it to say, when the campaign kicks off, these 3,000 guys are way down south. So the smart thing to do is to march them overland, put them on boats, and sail along Long Lake. And what I like about this is it gives us a flow chart here where we have options for whether, oh, my Zoom is not happy, whether we send these guys straight up to the capital or along over here. And one of the things I like to do when running these solo wargame campaigns is minimize the amount of work that I have to do. So the first thing that the aggressors are going to do in this case is consolidate their forces into 3 groups. And if we run down these numbers, what you'll find is that the human empire starts out with, remember we said 9,300 troops, right? It's going to be a total of 500 archers, 500 light foot, almost 6,000 heavy foot, 1,200 armored foot, 500 light horse, and about 700 medium and heavy horse. Now let's take a look at the orcs. And remember the orcs, I broke these down in half. The number you see on the left here is the Western Orcish boys. They outnumber the humans 2 to 1, but they're not going to get along very well, right? So the guys on the west, because they didn't have any small villages, they have a total of, and actually they have 3 different groups, because they've got the Western guys, the Eastern guys, and they've got the Great Orcish Khan himself. The Orcish Khan's army consists of about 2,200 heavy foot, 600 armored foot, and 1,000 heavy horse. So that's one of the armies we have. That's easy. They start on Orc Lake. They start right here on the shore. And then I took a look at the map, and I kind of pulled back, and I said, well, how are the rest of these guys going to consolidate? And I said, well, you know, based on the geography, we've got these 3 guys down here. You'll have a small force kind of south of the woods, and these guys will consolidate as well. This is our border between them, right? So then if we consolidate everybody kind of north of the lake and everybody south of the lake, then we wind up with 5 maneuver units for the part of the orcs. And where we're going with this is we need to establish 2 things. We need to establish what the goal of the Roman Empire is. And the way I see it, they've got a couple of different goals. One is they can try to take Watchtower Hill. Perhaps, this is that one hill down here, perhaps there's a relic of some sort. in the Watchtower Hill that they're trying to retrieve. That's all they want to do. But to get there, they have to mount a massive expedition. Maybe they want to burn these 3 C-class towns on the border. Maybe it's a punitive strike. I'm not sure yet. The third thing is maybe they want to kill the Orcish Khan, right? So that's what we need to know. What are the humans going to do? But before we get to that, because we don't want our tactics to be influenced, remember that we're trying to be as neutral of a third party as possible for this portion of the game to generate interesting battles, asymmetric battles on the tabletop. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what the Khan's plan is first. And remember I said he's got 5 maneuver units. So effectively there are 3 different options he's got at disposal. One is he's not going to cross the border. He's going to let the humans come to him. He can use the southern forces as delaying tactics for the bigger forces to come down, and he's got his own army in reserve that can come into the center and go either way, right? So remember, if the humans come up and they kind of deny the western flank, they can march up here without having to worry about that other reserve unit on the west coming after them, right? So that's where the Great Khan's reserve essentially becomes the third army for the orcs. The orcs still outnumber the humans, but they are going to have a little bit longer of a hike to get down to where the action is. Okay? So once you've figured out what all those groups are, then you can sit down and you can run the numbers on the movement. And that's what I've already done here for the Bromans. I said, okay, well, if I consolidate into 3 different armies, what I will do is I will wind up with an army of the West. And on June 27th, they will be in this little E-class village and a week away from the border. They're going to have an army with 200 archers, 400 light foot, 360 light horse, about 2,500 medium foot, and 600 armored foot, right? So just divide by 100. It'll be 2 stands of archers, 4 light foot, 4 light horse, 25 medium foot, and 6 armored foot. Over here on the eastern section, we'll have an army that's going to have 300 archers, about 600 light horse, 600 light foot, and about 300 medium foot. Not quite as big. And then we've got a third force coming up the middle. Hey, diddle diddle. This is Emperor Meltzer's boys. It's going to have 400 heavy Oh, I'm sorry. Did I get that right? You got to add these 2 together to figure out how big this force is. It's 800 heavy horse, 700, 600 armored foot, a lot of medium foot. I think I did my math wrong here. I might need to relook at that. But essentially what we've got is 3. Yeah, these guys, I think these guys are distinct from these guys. I'll double check. Anyway, the point is we're going to have left, right, and center. What are we going to do? And again, we don't know what their goal is. That's going to determine partially what the strategy is. But I want to figure out what the defenders are doing first. So we're going to roll a d6 to figure out what the Great Khan has decided. He doesn't know, and the great part is he doesn't know, we don't know what the goal is, neither does he. So on a 1-2, it's going to be, I even wrote this down to keep myself honest. So here's our 3 orc strategies. On a 1 or a 2, they're going to go all-out defense. They're not crossing the border. On a 5 or 6, as soon as these boys get consolidated, they're going to charge off through the woods to meet the enemy. And on a 5, on a 4, on a 3 or 4, it will be a slow burn, which will be kind of a mix. What we'll do is we'll roll. We'll actually throw one side or the other will attack while the other side hangs out. Does that make sense? So on a 1-2, these guys don't move. We're going to leave our reserves up here. Probably move the Khan over to the middle, so we've got 3 in the back and 2 in the front. Depending on how these battles go, he can do whatever. On a 3 or 4, we'll have to roll another d6. On a 1, 2, 3, these guys go down south. On a 4, 5, 6, these guys. So the 6 means it is going to be an all-out attack as soon as these forces are consolidated. And I even did the math for these guys. Bear in mind, there's no roads up here in the north, so they only move at a 1/2 inch per turn. Right? So remember on the June 18th. Right? So what we know is that on June 18th, these 3 communities are going to get their orcs together right here. And that force is going to be 160 light horse, call it 2 stands of light horse, 2 stands of medium horse, and 13 stands of medium infantry. So we're just going to go inflict as many wounds as possible. Likewise over here, we've got 2 stands of archers, 2 stands of light foot, and then 5 light horse, 11 medium foot, and 1 medium horse heading down through the woods in this direction to meet up. And again, we don't know. And then we will, so the other thing I did is this Northern Army, a little bit bigger, 2,500 heavy foot, right? Some plenty armored foot, 3 stands of heavy horse. On June 24th, that's where they'll be. So they're not going to waste any time. As soon as June 24th rolls around, they're going to follow suit. Likewise with this, wow, this is a pretty crazy army. June 21st, this skull is where this army is located. 2 archers, 2 light foot, 15 medium foot, 2 light horse, 2 medium horse, and 1 heavy horse. A little bit of everything here. And then, of course, the Khan is going to be right there. On the 16th, he starts moving, so we can put him anywhere we want. In fact, what we'll do is we'll just order him in this direction, and he's going to kind of hold right about here once he gets there. I don't have my ruler. Oh, yeah, I do. So we can even figure out how far that is. Without the roads, guys on foot, and armies move at the speed of the slowest. Guys on foot are only going to move a half an inch per day. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, got to rest after 6, 7, 8. So on the June 24th, this is where the Great Khan will be. And he may set up camp right there and just wait to see what happens on either side. Okay, so now we know what the orcs are going to do. Let's take a look at what the Broman Empire is going to do. And as I said, they have 3 potential goals. Are they going to loot Watchtower? Are they going to sack the southern C-class towns? Or are they going to kill the Khan? On a 1 or 2. All right, they're just interested in Watchtower Hill. Okay, so that kind of tells us something right off the bat. We know that Watchtower Hill is, well, if we line these up, here's Watchtower Hill right here. We'll zoom in. There we go. So we already know we've got 2 armies here. We've got a 3rd army there. Right? So the question is, which of these 2 armies is going to be the primary army heading for the hill? And which is going to be something of a reserve force? 1, 2, 3, this is our primary. 4, 5, 6, it's this guy. All right, so these guys, this Army of the West, is going to move up and take up position somewhere in this area, as this army swings this way to get through. And so what we may do is shift the present location now that we know what the actual goal is. Since they're not heading north, they're going to go straight for Watchtower Hill. We'll move them along the Great Circle and put them kind of right there. Right? If they march unopposed, they are going to be another. Now, in the heavy woods, you can only move a 1/4 of an inch per day. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and by the way, these guys are pretty close. So let's see how far. So it's on June 27th, 8th, 9th, 30th, 31st. 80 days, half September, April, June, January, February, March, April, May. January, February, March, April, May, June. Oh, it's 30 days. Okay. So on the 1st of the month, they will only be 1, 2, 3. Whoop, where's that? There it is. 1, 2, 3. So this is where they'll be on the 30th, and they're going to cross the border on July 1st. And it just occurred to me, I don't know what the weather is. I haven't been checking that. So here's what we'll do. The way we'll justify that is by saying that the weather was great in June. Oops. I mean, we know I forgot, but we can justify it, right? Man is a rationalizing creature. So this is the way Sylvester suggests that you do the weather chart. On July 1, we're going to roll 2d12, okay? And for every day after that, and I like to do this in about 10-day chunks. So let's first figure out what the weather is like on the morning of July 1. And on a result of a 9, we're going to be right here. So let me make a note of that over here. So on July 1, we have fair weather. Then every day you roll a d6. And on a 1 or a 2, let me make sure I get this right. On a 1 or a 2, you move the marker up a space. On a 5 or 6, you move, on a 1 or 2, it's down, and on a 5 or 6, it's up. Okay? So for the second, we do nothing. For the third, we do, okay, so we are here in July, and on a 1 or a 2, we move to here. So that's where we are on the second, third, and then on the fourth, we go down again. So that's on the fourth, still fair. On the fifth, it starts to rain. We get light rain on the fifth. So July 2 through 4, it's fair. And on the fifth, we get a light rain. All right. And then on the sixth, we go back up. So the rain stopped. On the seventh, we go back down. So the sixth is fair. The seventh is light rain. And these will impact our marching rates. On the eighth, we can't go down anymore. So, I don't know what to do. I think we just pause there. If the marker is at either end of the chart, it cannot be moved. Reposition it to the other end. A 2 becomes a 12. Okay. Yeah, so we actually drop all the way back down to fair weather. And I guess you can see why the Broman Empire chose to do so that we move back down to fair weather. So 8, 9, 10, and we just keep moving down. 8, 9, 10 puts us here. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and we're back up to here. So here's where we are on June 15th. Okay, no more rain. So we only had rain on the 5th and the 7th. Then this will show you what happens, right? On the day 1, if you're on the road, it doesn't have any impact. If you're off-road, you know what? None of this is going to impact us. Just a day of light rain doesn't do anything. If we had had a couple of days of light rain, then your movement would have been the number after the strike mark there is for like artillery. Yeah, there it is. The second is for artillery. So if you have 3 days of light rain, everybody's movement is cut in half, and you have to stop after 4 days of light rain. Well, we didn't have that. All we had was 1 day at a time. So the weather is not going to affect us through July 15th. That's good to know. And I mean, I guess, if we wanted to be smug, we could have said, well, see, look, the weather didn't affect. Well, we don't need to be smug. It's pretty obvious the humans had picked, maybe they have auguries, right? It's a fantasy campaign. They made sure to move out when they had 30 days of good weather. Now, but we still have a couple of other things to deal with. Are we going to move this Western army up on the attack as well? And are we going to bring this army up on the attack? So on a 1, 2, 3, the Western army moves up. They do. And on a 1, 2, 3, the Eastern army moves up. They do. So all three of these armies are going to strike out for the border. And I want to figure out, what I like to do is I push these guys up to July 1st. Then I flip over and look at the orcs and say, okay, where are the orcs going to be on July 1st? Because that's going to tell me when and where our first conflict is going to occur. We are just about done here, guys. What we have time to do for the orcs is park our Great Khan right here in the center on the border, ready to rush to plug any gaps that are formed. The next thing that we notice is that this northwestern army, by July 1st, will come down right around the woods. So they're ready to follow up with a second punch as well. This northeastern army is able to move very rapidly. They are able to consolidate to right here on the June, the 21st already? It only takes 5 days to get going. You'll notice this little 1 day, these guys took a day to get ready. The orc chief there, I don't know, he woke up drunk that morning. He didn't want to get moving. Didn't make a big difference because they had to wait a day and a half for these guys to catch up. Anyway, that's one thing you can do to see how each of these communities responds. Didn't make a difference. And they can move pretty quickly, right? In a course of 10 days, they can move 5 inches, and that puts them down just inside this light woods down here. Again, if I wanted to, I could have taken all of these horses and moved them at twice speed to catch up with these guys down here. I didn't need to do that, right? This is a large force. They've come down. Now, where it gets interesting, and again, this force that consolidated here is able to make it to this skull. And if we take a look on June 27th, so one day puts them on the edge of the paper, and then another day of hiking puts them right here, you can see. So this is on July 1st. It looks like on July 2nd, we're going to have a battle down here. But before we get to that, we got to look down here at the goal here, Watchtower Hill. This force consolidates so quickly, and they're right on the border by June 18th. But that can't be right, man. June 18th? You're telling me we started on June 16th, and these guys are already over here on the 18th? I don't think so. We start on the 16th. They can only move, is that 1.5 inches? It's pretty close. We'll give it to them. They're really on the ball. So June 18th, these guys are already ready to go. So we got to roll the clock back, because what that means is, pull up this map. If you look up here, remember we thought that this human army was going to be ready to go on June 27th. But on June 25th, the orcs appear right here coming out of the woods. On June 25th, this army is down here in this, and we're to the point where I need to stop, and I need to get some names on these settlements. This D-class community was home to this army. They are not going to be able to march up to this village. Instead, they're going to head these guys off at the pass. So essentially what's happening here is that the orcs got the jump. They moved across the border. This army, which was in reserve, is now going to have to punch them so that this orcish army doesn't cut off the hero army, which is now moving up towards Watchtower Hill. So we have our first battle over here on June, well, what's it going to be? We gotta measure. And I don't play around too much with, surprise and delaying actions and all that stuff unless it becomes necessary. So if we assume they're there, then that 1.5 days is going to put our first battle right here in the countryside. All right? And it's going to pit there's about 4,000 humans against this southern force of, so it's 4,000 humans against only about 1,500, 1,800. So we have a huge advantage to the humans. But look what's coming up behind, right? And not only that, but we've got the Great Khan is well ahead of this army. So we may see the Great Khan with his 4,000 men heading down this way. But like I said, the Great Khan is the reserve force. He doesn't know what's going on over here yet either. He doesn't even know where this other human army is. And you can see it right there on July 1st. They're just going to start peeking out of the woods. So then it's going to be a race to between these two forces to get to Watchtower Hill. And whatever happens there, the Khan is going to be really close and ready to hit a second group. So, who knows what's going to happen? There's a lot of different possibilities, but we do have our first battle. And that's what we're going to do next week in our Chainmail solo wargaming map-based campaign. It's all about the maps, guys. It's all about, I know this is complicated. There's a lot of numbers in here, but this provides, look, if you had told me, hey, your first battle for the raid on Watchtower Hill is going to pit about 4,000 humans of various stripes right? We even have a few archers, 25 units of medium foot. Oh, I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with that. You know, actually, there's not a lot of, there's only 4 stands of light horse in there. Well, that's interesting. On the human side, 4 stands of light horse, and the 2 stands of light horse on the orc side. The light horse, those are wolves, remember? So there's only 4 stands of horse on either side. The difference is it's 13 medium foot against 25 medium foot, and then a whole bunch of backup. So this campaign, I think, is going to get really interesting. It's going to generate a number of interesting battles, and what we'll do is we'll give this location a name, and we'll lay out the cards using the standard system, right? Now, I know it's grasslands, but that doesn't mean there aren't smaller elements of terrain. Where's the visual aid for that? Here we go. So we'll do the same thing with the cards to figure out what the terrain for that day is going to be. And as we do that, we'll pencil in the map. And now we know what things look like here in this little corner of the Roman Empire. Hey, until we get to that battle, I'm praying for you.